so welcome everybody. As Andrew said, today I'm going to be talking about the relationship between marketing and sales. Sales and marketing obviously depend on one another. The relationship should be as symbiotic as possible, but it's usually not. So I just wanted to talk through a couple of different strategies on how to help break down some of the silos and impact success. We'll talk through some of the tactics for lead qualification and funnel velocity once those silos are gone. And then we'll talk through some approaches to maximizing customer value. We will have, as Andrew mentioned, some time at the end for Q&A, but if anybody has a burning question, don't hesitate to raise your hand as we go here. So as Andrew also mentioned, I'm Nikki Vaughn. I'm a lead solution engineer at Salesforce. I work on the marketing cloud side. I've been in the space for about 11 years now, and I've picked up a couple of certifications along the way. And then I'm joined by Scott Lavender. He is a senior manager for solution engineering. He's on we call it core, but basically that's all in the Salesforce ecosystem, right? So it's Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Commerce, MuleSoft, Slack, Marketing Cloud, all of it kind of tied together. I am a Richmond native. I'm from Powhatan technically, but I claim Richmond. I'm a VCU grad. Spent some time at JMU before that. I started my career in MarTech at Snagajob. Some of you guys may be familiar with that company. And in my role at Salesforce, I basically work with sales to determine or demonstrate the value of marketing cloud products to enterprise customers in the travel, transportation, and hospitality industry or vertical. I'm the mom of 2 boys, so when I'm not working, I'm at the ball field watching my 13-year-old son play baseball, trying to keep my 5-year-old son somewhat entertained during that time, or finishing our house. We've been building for the entire pandemic, it seems like. And then more rarely than I'd prefer, I read sometimes, not as much as I used to. So that's a little bit about me. When I was pulling everything together for this presentation, I took a little bit of time to reflect on some of the customers that I've been fortunate enough to work with. Prior to joining Salesforce, I spent most of my career post-Snagajob in the consulting space. So a lot of these brands you'll notice or you'll recognize, and I put these up here mainly to say and highlight that yes, you likely recognize them all, but they all do marketing in their own way, and they all have challenges, right? So I think it's always helpful for me to think about, okay, well, if I know these companies and I know these brands and I know that they still have challenges doing marketing, then that makes me feel a little bit better about, you know, when I was on the customer side, also having similar challenges. No one's doing it completely right. Yes?
I was going to say, has anyone mastered marketing out of these companies?
JetBlue might be doing it nearly correct at this point. But, I mean, everybody has their challenges. Marriott does a pretty good job with it. And it's interesting, too, because a lot of these brands they're very B2C, but they also have B2B elements, right? So what we typically see is more streamlining and more success on the B2C front, which is what makes these brands known to us, and a little bit more of a challenge on the B2B side, because it's just a little bit harder, because it's a longer sales cycle. You've got sales teams that are working to sell into accounts, all of that. So, no, the short answer is no one's doing it perfectly. There's always room to grow. And it also doesn't help that, well, it doesn't and does help that the technology that helps enable these marketing teams is constantly changing. So once you get to a point where you feel like you're doing it really well, something else comes out. You say, okay, well, let's tackle that. Let's push our marketing maturity a little further. So that's just a little bit about that. We always start with a thank you at Salesforce. So it's very important to us to express our gratitude. We know that your time is valuable. We know that it's raining. So we just appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come listen and hear what we have to say. So let's get into it. This was the marketing technology landscape 10 years ago. This is the marketing technology landscape today. Technically, this was 2020. I could not find any 2021 diagrams. There will be a quiz on this at the end of the session today, so make sure you study. No, I think that we can all understand and appreciate that we've gone from a whole lot of solutions to way, way more solutions, right? Or technology offerings. It's no wonder we have data silos. It's no wonder that companies struggle with making sense of everything that's coming out of these tools. We also can understand and appreciate that more data doesn't always equal better data. So data that's not well integrated, data that's not consolidated into a useful view, that can lead to challenges on lead entry, lead qualification, conversion, customer satisfaction. All of those outputs are impacted by this landscape, right? So the key challenge here is taking what you have happening in all of these platforms and bringing it together in a way that enables marketing to qualify leads in a way that helps sales do their jobs more effectively and more quickly. So we're going to jump now into the first topic. We're going to talk through a few ways that can help you deconstruct the silos that exist between sales and marketing. One of the primary challenges that individuals in sales and marketing ops roles face are typically tied to misconceptions about how the other group operates. Often the leads that marketing is passing over are described as junk, right? These are strong words, but I've heard them a lot. And then marketing can perceive sales as being lazy because they don't take action on the leads that they're passing over. These misconceptions really don't have a place in today's sales and marketing organizations. You should be partnering with sales to understand what their key challenges are so that you can jointly develop plans to address them, plans and strategies to address them. Assigning shared accountability is another thing that I think can be helpful to enable sales and marketing teams to work more effectively together. And you also reduce opportunities for finger pointing. Should something not work, right? Should a process fail or technology change? So it's very important that you find ways to partner with your sales organization and share that accountability. Some of the ways that you can do that is to develop programs that are going to meet the needs of your salespeople and provide them a seat at the table. So what I have typically been able to effectively do is identify 2 to 3 sales reps who are eager, who are learners, who are anxious to be a part of the development of new processes. Anyone who's open to change is going to be a great change agent for you and help affect change within your organization. I say pick guinea pigs, right? So you want to use these folks to help discuss ideas, test out processes, and then get their feedback, right? And make sure that you're incorporating that feedback into the development of your updated processes and procedures. You do not want to ever develop processes in a vacuum, right? Because then I think that's where a lot of the challenges come from. Marketing is doing their thing, sales is doing their thing, and there's no consideration for how those two organizations can interact effectively. Working with 2 to 3 salespeople is going to allow you to understand what their day-to-day activities are, consider the challenges that they face, and also develop campaign strategies that incorporate this information more effectively so that you can capture high-quality leads that require less time and less development prior to passing them over to sales. As an added bonus, your smart reps are going to go out and evangelize your new processes. They're going to help with adoption. They're going to talk to their colleagues about this is what we did and this is why we did it, right? They're going to be the best advocates. They're sales folks, right? They're going to be out there selling these new processes and the new tech to their teams. That's also, I meant to say that Scott's also here at my clicker breaks. You've got a backup one, right?
Clicker guy, yeah.
You're also making sure that everything I say is right.
Absolutely,
Okay.
every word.
You shouldn't rely on the rockstar AEs that helped you develop your plans and strategies to train their peers. So the next thing I want to talk about here is don't forget about enablement, right? You want to make sure that in addition to documenting updated processes or new processes, that you're hosting training sessions to enable your sales team. I like to say that failing to plan is planning to fail, right? That's a cliche statement, but so too will failure to train ensure the same outcome. So after you've trained the team, make sure that you're providing them with avenues to share feedback, right? You train them, but you don't necessarily know that in all situations what you've enabled for them is going to be effective. So make sure that you provide them with an opportunity to share that feedback and that you take time to really consider it and incorporate it as you're able. All right, now we're going to talk about improving lead quality. So now that the silos have evaporated, we'll talk about what we can do to improve the quality of the leads that are passing from the marketing teams over to the sales teams so that you can speed up the time to revenue. So in the B2B world, leads should typically be scored and qualified before marketing passes into sales. Scoring models, though, can seem complex and daunting, really. I've implemented enough scoring models to appreciate that. So I'm going to break it down. Basically, we so we're going to take scoring first. Different marketing automation platforms take different approaches to scoring, but we generally see that scoring considers behavioral and profile inputs in order to calculate scores. In Salesforce world, we use score and grade. So a score is going to be used to gauge behavior and determine based off of tracked or implicit activity how interested a prospect is in your products and services. We consider information that you know about the prospect to determine their grade, right? So are prospects actively browsing your website? Are they downloading white papers? Have they made a previous purchase? All of the activity-based inputs should be used to help determine the lead score. Prospects that have high scores should be considered hot leads or nearly ready buyers and should be acted upon quickly. Scores typically are represented by numbers, so 1 to 100 is kind of common. With scoring categories, you can configure different scoring models, and this is something that I've seen within Salesforce, but I haven't seen in all the maps, so this can't be applied generally. But with scoring categories, you can configure different scoring models based upon common characteristics of groups of leads that you have. So you could create categories like leads who are interested in particular products. You can configure different parts of your marketing automation platform to score at different times, right? To either add to a score or take away from a score. You could do this when a lead submits a form, when they click through a particular web page. There's a lot of flexibility around how you add to the score, and you also want to consider taking away from that score as time progresses and activity decreases, right? You don't want to score someone as a 95, and then if they go dark, keep them at a 95. A lead grade is going to give you a sense of how interested you should be in a prospect. So how much do you know about them? If your sales team is territory-based, do you know where they're located? Do you know if they have any decision-making power, right? What's their title? Do you have adequate contact information? Do Do you know how to reach out to them? Do you have an email? Do you have a phone number? Grades can either be numeric or alphabetical. At Salesforce, we have alphabetical, so A through D is typically what we see, where A indicates that it's a close fit, that they closely match the target profile of your existing customer base or the profile of customers that you're looking to break into. And then D would be someone who falls outside of your target audience or is not an ideal buyer. Scoring technology has also evolved to incorporate artificial intelligence or machine learning elements. So within Pardot, we have, not to get too product specific, but I want to point out Einstein because that really takes scoring to another level. You can actually now choose whether you want to deploy the standard scoring model, which you configure on your own, or if you want to start to use the Einstein lead scoring, which is going to use AI and ML to algorithmically assess all of past purchaser data to apply scores to new prospects, right? So it's going to take everything that's in your system, make sense of it, and say, this person is has a score of 100 and a grade of A versus someone who doesn't score as high just based off of what the data in the system tells you. The Einstein model is much less flexible than a custom or standard customized lead scoring model, but it tends to be much more precise because it is utilizing all of that rich data that you have available in your CRM. Scores can be made visible to both marketing and sales, which means you're giving everyone insight into a lead's fit and their sales readiness. So definitely make sure that if you're scoring, that you're modifying your contact view and your lead view within your CRM to display those scores to your sales reps. It also helps on the reporting side as well. If you're a Pardot user and you opt not to use Einstein lead scoring, you'll want to make sure that you understand how to define your ideal customer so that the inputs can be used to configure your scoring model. So the first and most important step in this process is to meet with all of the different stakeholders to outline what the ideal prospect looks like. Next, you're going to want to identify the criteria that your organization wants to look at. You want to make sure that you're including items like company size, location, industry, department, so that you understand who you want to be targeting, right? And you can assess folks who come in to make sure or to see whether or not they align. Next, you're going to need to determine the relative weight for the criteria that you identify in step 1. Should the criteria be weighed equally, or do certain profile characteristics qualify someone to score higher? Finally, you're going to want to determine what the ideal values are for each of those criteria. This is going to include defining your most ideal locations, departments, job titles, or any of the items that you've identified in your core criteria. So now that you've got your scoring model configured, it's time to consider when you're going to start assigning leads to sales so that they can follow up or complete other actions. And that's where we get into lead thresholds, which I'm going to take a minute to talk about. So the point at which marketing is ready to send a lead over to sales is commonly referred to as the threshold, the scoring threshold. The threshold in this context is really just an indication that a lead is ready to move from marketing to sales, right? So they're sales ready. When their score reaches or exceeds a predetermined amount, they're going to become marketing qualified or MQL, and they're going to pass over from marketing to sales. While you want to be sure that their grade is high enough to indicate that you know they're a good fit for your products and services, it's also critical that you ensure that your threshold calculates in a high score, which indicates that not only are they a fit for you, but they're active. They're actively involved with the assets that you've published. They're interacting with your emails. They're receiving your SMS texts and are acting upon those, right? There's many different ways that they can be active. So you want to make sure that the threshold takes that into account, because someone who's a good fit but isn't engaged is not going to be ready to make a purchase. Conversely, leads that have that lower grade are going to indicate that the ideal customer profile hasn't been met. So they could be interacting with your assets, but they're not necessarily someone that you would want to sell to. You could have a group of prospects who are very active that you've never considered as part of your target market, right? So you can also look at the data that you have and say, okay, maybe there's a group of people that we need to start to look at. Maybe there are products that we can develop to meet the needs that these people have. It's important to note that in addition to your scoring model configuration requiring changes, will require changes over time as you become more sophisticated. You'll also need to adjust your thresholds when you do that. So the most critical thing to remember about your lead scoring model is that it should not be set it and forget it, right? You're going to want to make sure that you're regularly evaluating the quality of the leads that are making it over to sales, and that you're evolving both the scoring model and the thresholds over time. I typically recommend doing this quarterly to twice a year. It's really just going to depend on what your funnel velocity looks like and whether or not you've got feedback from sales that what you're doing is working or not. So once you've implemented and activated your scoring model, you're going to want to start to monitor the progression of your leads. So if you need a refresher on funnel velocity, if I'm saying any terms, by the way, that you don't understand, let me know. I speak this language in my sleep, but I realize I'm the only nerd that does. So funnel velocity is really just a term that refers to the amount of time that it takes a lead to progress from, awareness, right, up there in the visitor section, so they've just become aware of you and your brand and what you have to offer, all the way down to the conversion piece where they become a customer. To understand pipeline health and funnel velocity, you're going to want to monitor some key indicators. So you're going to want to look at things like whether or not you have a large number of MQLs, but a small number of SQLs, right? Large volume of MQLs, small number of SQLs is going to indicate to you that you're sending a lot of leads to sales, but they're not sales ready. They're really not truly ready because they're not converting. If you consider that you've got a small number of MQLs and a small number of SQLs, maybe you need to do some more work upstream to pull more people into the funnel, right? More on the acquisition front. If there's a really long period of time between MQL and SQL, you may need to have some conversation with sales about why are the sales taking longer, right? Is it a sales cycle issue, or is it that they're just truly not qualified when they reach your queue, right? So there's some things you can do there to improve the speed with which they're converting. And then ideally, you're going to have a short period of time between MQL and SQL, right? That's going to tell you that of the leads that are coming in that qualify, as soon as sales gets them, they're easily able to convert them, or they're able to do it within a reasonable amount of time. Use the data that you have available, right? I think we're all inundated with data these days, but use what you have, right? You don't necessarily have to go out and buy a ton of new software solutions in order to help give you more data. Take what you have first so that you can continue to monitor your funnel velocity as well as adjust the model as you need to. There's a lot more that we could get into on this topic, but now I want to switch gears and focus on ways to maximize the value of your customers. So your leads have come in, marketing has qualified them, marketing and sales are speaking the same language and skipping through the fields, holding hands, sales is converting them quickly, and now they're customers, right? What do you do once you convert someone into a customer? You want to make them happy, you want to make them buy more. So at Salesforce, we talk a lot about trust. That's probably an understatement. We talk about trust all the time. It's our number one value. It's core to everything that we do. So what we like to do is talk about how you can build trusted relationships with your customers so that you can maximize the value of these customers who are basically now digital first. This comes down to creating exceptional experiences through a collection of moments, ultimately. So as a brand, you're going to be focused on always building relationships, whether you're working with new customers, existing customers, customers you've won back. It's in those moments that you deliver, that you keep all of your customers engaged with your brand in order to continue to expand your relationship with them. But in today's environment of ultra-competitive and experience-first world, every brand is competing on experience, right? Everyone is doing that. And everyone's trying to deliver exceptional moments. So how do you differentiate yourself from the competition? We're also now living, especially in the pandemic, I'm not going to say post-pandemic, but now that we're living in this new world where we've seen a rapid expansion of digital engagement, how can you build more trusted relationships with your customers who have increasingly become digital first? Let's take a look at some statistics before we talk about how we go about doing that. For the past 7 years, Salesforce has commissioned an annual state of marketing report where we survey, usually it's about 8,000 marketers across the globe for their insights. What I thought was interesting from this year's survey is if we look at the top 3 priorities, creating a cohesive customer journey across channels and devices, innovating and engaging with customers in real time. And then we look at the top 3 challenges, engaging with customers in real time, innovating, and creating a cohesive customer journey across channels and devices. Those are the same, right? So I saw that and I was like, wait, is this right? Is this something wrong with this slide? What does that mean? To me, it means a couple of things. First, it highlights the fact that for all businesses, digital customer experience reigns supreme, right? And I've meant to mention that I'm kind of transitioned out of B2B speak into B2C speak, but I want to make sure that I'm touching on things that are relevant to all of you who are here. But back to the part about digital customer experience reigning supreme. 86% of top performing companies led customer experience initiatives over the past year, while 72% of underperforming companies led the same. So we might as well skywrite at this point that you have to go digital or go home, right? Every consumer is expecting a connected digital experience. Innovation is not optional. It is an essential ingredient to success in today's digital world. Customer expectations have shifted largely in response to the pandemic. And this shift is not going anywhere. It's permanent, right? We're not going back. We're not going back on a lot of fronts, but especially when it comes to how we interact with brands. How your company responds to this and how you react to the demand for innovation is going to determine your ability to create that cohesive experience that customers are looking for. There are a lot of other really great nuggets in this visualization, but I'm going to stay on the connected customer journey piece. Andrew has this deck in a PDF format, so if anyone wants it afterward, you're welcome to have it. Also, I recommend you go out and grab the state of marketing report because it's got a lot in it. It's super helpful and it's free. So today's customers are in control of their relationships with whether it's a brand that they're working with or whoever they're choosing to buy from. They hold high expectations for the experience that's delivered to them. To deliver great moments that build into lifelong customer relationships, marketers have to overcome some key challenges. Experience has become so important to customers that 84% say that the experience a company provides is as important as its products and services. So think about that. before you ever get to the point where you can sell what you have to someone, you have to give them a good experience on the front end, or they're going to go somewhere else. These are challenges that all digital marketers face, but there are other gaps which are going to make it hard to meet rapidly evolving expectations of modern connected. Creating these connected digital moments, it's a mouthful. I should have said that out loud when I was building this, called it something different. Creating the connected moments is hard, right? There are a number of key obstacles that stand in the way. Why is that? It's because creating connected digital moments are complex, and it's hard to tie all of the data together. To be digitally connected with your customers is going to require a shift in the way that you bring your technology and data together. And it's also going to require a shift in how your teams and organizations within your company are aligned, realizing that the sum is going to have to be greater than its parts. Often a lack of insight or having data that's difficult to take action on, or rapid change, or legacy tools, or all of the above, makes building trusted relationships and connecting every moment very, very challenging. So we've got 74% of our respondents saying that they use multiple channels to start and complete a transaction. But the challenges remain, right? It's hard to look at that data and understand it. It's hard to take action. Rapid change means that as soon as you deploy a new strategy, there's another one ready to take its place. What's more, today's modern customer sits at the center and they are in control of their relationship with your brand, right? They have high expectations as well. Customers want to see and experience connected moments across all of the channels and devices that they use to interact with you. They see it as one collective experience. They want to see personalized moments in real time. They expect connected moments throughout the channels that they're interacting with and the devices that they use. Brands have to earn consent now, right? I think we've all survived GDPR and CCPA and everything else. And there's more coming. So customers know how their data is being used and know how and if it's being respected by the brands that they're sharing it with. So trust and privacy have to be core to everything that you do with a customer's data. Otherwise, they will end their relationship with you and take their business somewhere else. If you're able, though, to connect all the moments with your customers and meet their expectations, you end up with something like this. And there's a lot going on here. But this is ultimately a zoomed out view of how our suite of products, Marketing Cloud 360, this can be very tool agnostic. I don't think I mentioned that though I work for Salesforce, I have worked with Eloqua, I used to work for Oracle, I've worked with Marketo, I've touched them all. So this architecture, even though it has these little product images, this really can apply regardless of what you're using. It's not specific to Salesforce, although you have the best products. Anyway, this is going to, all of these connected systems, platforms, are going to give you the ability to intelligently engage, optimize, and grow customer relationships and revenue. You can truly begin to measure your relationships and optimize for moments by closing the loop. And this also has a there we go. So one of the things that I think we often do, and let's say that this is your CRM, so your single source of truth. You have all these different inputs, right? So in Salesforce world, this means you've got analytics tied to your CRM. You have service tied to your CRM. You have your marketing automation platform. You have commerce, your website, right? You have your integration. Did you try again?
And then you have Siri.
You've got all of these data points plugged into your CRM. You then are activating that data. Customers are having digital interactions with your brand. You're pulling it all together, right? We do this through Einstein, but you can do this through any reporting tool, really. But often what we fail to see is people closing the loop. So this little dot back here to the front. Everything that ends up happening or everything that you assess at the end here should inform what you're doing on the front end. I probably should have made that a circle. But that's how you close the loop, right? You tie everything together and use what you've learned and what you understand from your data to inform your strategies, to inform when you pivot, to inform when you break into new markets. So this is the optimal view, right? So you're going to be able to understand, intelligently engage, optimize, grow your customer relationships, grow your revenue. In an ideal state, though, the cycle never ends, really. The power of data and AI is really what's going to give you the ability to improve and, I would say, expand the experience that your customer's having with your brand. You want to not only sell them, but you want to understand how they're using your products. What are their satisfaction levels, right? Again, all of it should inform what you continue to do. So, if I were to summarize, and I'm running out of time. Okay. If I were to summarize what I hope you've learned today, I would say this. First, silos bad, partnership good, right? Tear down the silos. You want to partner with sales to do that. Share accountability for outcomes so that you can drive both of those organizations to improved outcomes. Next, learn from, solicit input from, and gather feedback from trusted stakeholders on the sales side. Give sales a seat at the table so that they can incorporate, or so that they have an opportunity to share their feedback and you can incorporate it into your processes. And then do not forget to enable sales. If you're going to make a number of changes that are geared toward making their lives easier and improving their outcomes, tell them about these changes. Provide them with documentation. Train them on how to use new technologies. As with any great partnership, it's all about communication. I've been married for almost 15 years. And it's about communication. Fourth, define a scoring strategy and work to implement it. Don't set it and forget it. It should evolve with your business and incorporate quantitative and qualitative feedback. So use the data that you have, but also talk to your sales teams to make sure that what you're doing and what you're sending works for them. Fifth, pay attention to your funnel. Digest what the data is telling you. Ask questions of your data. So I said it earlier, we're all inundated with data. It can be very overwhelming. But if you take it in pieces and you start to ask questions, it's a little bit easier to get into that deeper exploration so that you can use that information to transform your pipeline and increase sales. And then finally, exploit your technology, right? Make it work for you and your customers. Enable that connected customer experience by integrating your platforms whenever possible so that you can meet customers where they're at and remain top of mind when it comes time to making a purchasing decision. Don't let them forget about you. And don't give them a bad experience, because that's the death knell. So I'll say thank you again. I said it in the beginning, but again, I appreciate your time. I know that calendars are insane all the time now, and I just appreciate everyone coming out. I hope you learned something today. I'll open it up for Q&A. I can also hang around at the very end for other questions if there are any that anyone's uncomfortable sharing. That's a group. So thank you.